All right, so get ready because today we're going to do a deep dive on something super interesting, the link between happiness and success.
Oh, yeah.
You gave me some really interesting stuff on this, especially those pieces from The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got that awesome summary of the book, too. So,
Right. Acre's work, it really flips the way we normally think about success, you know?
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It really does. We're always told work hard, reach your goals, and then you'll be happy, right?
Right.
But Achor's like, nah.
Yeah.
It's the other way around. Happiness is what, powers your success. It's not the result of it.
Yeah, I think what I find really cool is that he brings in science to support this idea.
Right.
He talks about how when we're happy, our brains release all these chemicals like dopamine and serotonin.
Right.
And those are basically like rocket fuel. They help us think better, they boost our creativity and even our problem-solving skills.
So basically what you're saying is a happy brain is a supercharged brain.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not just about, feeling good in the moment.
Yeah.
Those good vibes, they create this ripple effect. It's like
Yeah.
happiness helps us learn better, remember things longer, and make decisions that are clearer.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Achor, he talks about this whole idea of mindset being like a lever and fulcrum.
Mm-hmm.
Can you break that down a bit more for me?
Sure.
Because I remember the analogy from the book, but I don't think I fully grasped it,
Yeah, so he's using that principle by Archimedes
Okay.
that even a small change at the fulcrum of a lever can move a massive weight.
Yeah.
And he's saying our mindset, that's the fulcrum,
Okay.
and then our potential, that's the lever.
Okay.
So if we tweak how we think just a bit, it can make huge changes in what we're capable of.
So if we can just switch our perspective to be a bit more positive, we can achieve way more.
Exactly. That's what he calls a growth mindset, believing that you can improve. That's the key to actually improving. When you see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, you're way more likely to step up to the plate.
This reminds me of that story Achor tells about those kids in those Soweto schools.
Right.
When they were asked, who enjoys schoolwork. Almost all of them raised their hands, all excited,
Yeah.
because they saw it as this privilege, not a burden.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they found something similar at Harvard, too.
Wow.
The students who saw their education as a privilege, they did better than the ones who felt all stressed out by it.
It's a powerful example of how our mindset really does shape our reality,
It really does. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Achor also mentions this thing called the Tetris effect.
Oh, yeah.
I got to admit, when I first read that, I was a little confused. What does Tetris have to do with happiness and success?
It's an interesting concept. You know how when you play Tetris for a while, you start seeing those blocks everywhere?
Right.
That's the Tetris effect.
Okay.
He's saying it applies to our daily lives, too. We tend to see what we're looking for, positive and negative. If we're always looking for problems, guess what? We'll find them everywhere.
So if we train our brains to look for the good stuff, we're more likely to find it.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And this is where gratitude and optimism become super important,
Yeah.
He suggests a super simple but powerful exercise. Spend 5 minutes every day writing down things you're grateful for.
Okay.
It's like working out a muscle. The more you practice gratitude, the stronger it gets.
I actually tried that for a while, and it was really helpful.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
It can really change how you see the world,
It does. Okay, let's move on. Achor talks about this idea of falling up, which sounds kind of strange, right? Because falling's usually a bad thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's he talking about there?
He's talking about turning setbacks into opportunities.
Okay.
He knows, we all face tough times, failures, disappointments, challenges. They're just a part of life.
Yeah.
But he says we can actually come out stronger after those hard times. He's not saying pretend bad things don't happen, but rather choose how you respond to them.
So it's less about avoiding failure and more about what we do when we inevitably trip up?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that makes sense. But how do we actually make the best out of a bad situation?
Right.
It's easier said than done, right?
Absolutely. One key is to reframe those setbacks as learning moments.
Okay.
He gives these examples of people like Michael Jordan, who got cut from his high school basketball team.
Wow.
Walt Disney, who got fired for lacking imagination.
Way.
And even the Beatles, who were rejected by tons of record labels.
No way.
All these hugely successful people, they faced huge setbacks, but they didn't give up.
Right.
They used those experiences to learn and grow.
So it's like seeing those setbacks not as the end, but as the start of something potentially even better.
Yes.
Okay.
It's about finding that potential for growth in every experience, even the tough ones.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but it is possible.
Right.
And with practice, it can become our natural response to adversity.
That's really inspiring. It makes you wonder, though, what about when you're facing something so huge that you just feel overwhelmed? Like, where
Right.
do you even start?
Yeah.
Does Achor address that at all?
He does. That's where the Zora Circle comes in.
Okay.
It's a really clever strategy. You see, when we feel overwhelmed, our brains, they kind of go into this survival mode,
Uh-huh.
and that can make it harder to think clearly and solve problems well, you know?
So it's like we get so stuck on how big the problem is that we freeze up and don't know where to begin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Zora Circle is all about taking back control by focusing on small, manageable goals.
Okay.
Imagine a small circle at the bottom of a mountain. That's your starting point.
Okay.
As you hit those smaller goals, you slowly expand your circle of influence, building momentum as you go.
So instead of trying to climb the whole mountain at once, we start with a smaller, more doable goal and then gradually expand our efforts as we get more confident.
Precisely. And you'd be surprised how empowering those small wins can be. They give us that motivation to keep going, to tackle bigger and bigger challenges.
It's like that saying, you can't sprint a marathon.
Right.
Sometimes we need to pace ourselves, break things down, and focus on making steady progress.
Yeah, Ake actually uses a great example in the book about this student who had a really messy room, like ridiculously messy.
Okay.
The thought of cleaning the whole thing felt completely overwhelming.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
So they started by focusing on just a small circle on their desk, clearing it off, and putting everything back where it belonged.
So starting with just a tiny piece of the bigger problem.
Right.
I
And
bet.
that small act of organizing it gave them this feeling of accomplishment and motivated them to keep going circle by circle until the whole room was clean.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's like a visual representation of progress, which can be super motivating. It makes me think about my own email inbox. Sometimes it feels like this endless black hole of unanswered messages. Maybe I should try the Zoro Circle approach there.
I think you'd be surprised how effective it can be. Speaking of tackling challenges, have you ever noticed how some days it's easier to stick with good habits and avoid the bad ones?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Achor talks about this in his 20-second rule, which I think you'll find pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah, the 20-second rule. I've
Yeah.
heard that one. It's all about making good habits easier and bad habits harder, right?
Exactly.
It really stuck with me because it's so practical.
It's based on the idea of activation energy, the amount of effort it takes to start doing something new.
Okay.
Achor says, if you want to make a positive change, make it as easy as possible for yourself.
Gotcha.
If you want to work out in the morning, lay out your clothes the night before.
Uh-huh.
If you want to spend less time on your phone, put it in another room.
So it's like removing any obstacles between you and the habit you want to build.
Exactly.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you want to break a bad habit, make it harder to do.
Yeah.
For example, if you're trying to cut back on social media, log out of your accounts so you have to actively log back in each time.
It's all about reducing the friction for good habits and increasing it for bad ones.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it taps into our natural tendency to choose the path of least resistance.
This reminds me of something Achor mentions about how our physical environment actually influences our behavior.
Yeah.
Like something as simple as placing objects within easy reach can make us way more likely to use them.
That's a great point. We often underestimate the power of our surroundings to shape our choices.
Yeah.
When it comes to building good habits, it really is about setting ourselves up for success.
This has been really insightful.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, we've talked a lot about mindset and individual actions,
Yeah.
but what about the role of our relationships in all of this?
That's a key piece of the puzzle, and Achor definitely talks about it. His final principle is social investment. It highlights how important strong social connections are for our happiness, our resilience, and even how long we live.
That makes sense. We are social creatures after all.
Right. The research on this is fascinating. Have you heard of the Harvard Men study?
I think so.
It tracked hundreds of men for over 70 years.
Wow.
They found that close relationships were the biggest predictor of happiness and overall well-being,
Really?
even more than wealth or fame.
It's amazing to think about how much our relationships impact our lives.
It really is when you think about it. We crave connection, belonging, and support.
Yeah.
When those needs are met, we're naturally more likely to be healthy and successful.
So strong relationships actually help us succeed. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
I often think of success as this individual thing, but it sounds like who we surround ourselves with matters a lot.
Absolutely. Achor emphasizes that social investment is a two-way street.
Right.
It's not just about getting support, it's also about giving support to others.
Yeah.
Being kind, generous, and compassionate not only makes our relationship stronger, but also boosts our own well-being.
I've definitely felt that helping others always makes me feel good.
There's something so rewarding about having a positive impact on someone else's life, you know?
Yeah.
It gives us a sense of purpose and meaning, and it creates this ripple effect of positivity.
It's like this amazing cycle. The more we put into our connections, the more we get back, and the happier and more resilient we become.
Exactly, and it goes even deeper than that. Have you ever heard of the mirror neuron effect?
Mirror neuron effect. I don't think so. What's that about?
It's pretty amazing, actually. Our brain cells have this ability to mirror the emotions, actions, and even physical sensations of other people.
So we're literally picking up on what other people are feeling.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It is. It's like our brains are wired for empathy.
Okay.
We experience, to a certain extent, what others are going through.
Wow.
And that's why emotions can be so contagious. Think about how you feel when you're around someone who's super positive and enthusiastic.
Yeah, the energy is totally infectious.
Right.
But I guess this means negative emotions can rub off on us too, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, it's going to be tough to stay positive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why it's so important to be mindful of the people we spend time with.
So we need to be intentional about surrounding ourselves with people who lift us up and inspire us.
Absolutely. Achor even mentions a study where college students with lower GPAs actually saw their grades go up just by rooming with higher achieving students.
Wow.
It really shows how powerful our social environment can be.
That's incredible. Okay, so to wrap it all up, if we want to boost our happiness and our success, we should invest in our social connections.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? What does that look like in real life?
It's about nurturing the relationships we already have, putting effort into building new connections, and generally being around people who support our growth and well-being.
Right.
And remember, it's not just about having tons of friends, it's about the quality of those connections.
So we should focus on building those genuine, meaningful relationships with people who share our values.
Exactly. People who challenge us in a good way, who celebrate our wins and are there for us when we're struggling.
Yeah.
Those are the relationships that truly make a difference, you know?
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
Yeah.
We started by talking about how Achor challenges that old idea that success brings happiness, and instead says happiness is what drives success.
Right.
And we explored those 7 powerful principles he talks about in the happiness advantage. The happiness advantage itself, the fulcrum and the lever, the Tetris effect, falling up the Zorro circle, the 20-second rule, and social investment.
That's a lot to remember.
I know, right? But each principle gives us a practical tool for becoming more positive and reaching greater success in all areas of our lives.
It's true.
It's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything's perfect.
Right.
It's about making a conscious choice to focus on the good, learn from our setbacks, and build a strong support system.
It is. And as you go about your day, pay attention to what your mind is drawn to. Are you focusing on the problems or on the possibilities? Remember, happiness is more than just a feeling, it's a competitive advantage.
I love that we hope this deep dive is giving you some awesome tools to increase your happiness and achieve greater success in all areas of your life. Go out there and make it happen.
And it goes even deeper than that. Have you ever heard of the mirror neuron effect?
Mirror neuron effect? I don't think so. What's that?
It's pretty wild, actually. So our brain cells, they can actually mirror the emotions, actions, and even like physical feelings of other people.
Whoa, so we're literally like picking up on what other people are feeling.
Yeah, kind of crazy, right?
That's so weird.
It's like our brains are hardwired for empathy, you know?
Okay.
We experience to a certain extent what others are going through.
Wow.
And that's why emotions can be so contagious. You know, like think about how you feel when you're around someone who's super positive and energetic.
Oh, yeah, totally. Their energy is like infectious.
Right.
But I guess the flip side is that negative emotions can rub off on us too.
Unfortunately. Yeah, if you're always surrounded by negativity, it's going to be hard to stay positive yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why it's so important to be careful about who we spend our time with.
So we need to make a conscious effort to be around people who lift us up and inspire us.
Exactly. Achor even talks about this study where college students with lower GPAs, their grades actually improved just by rooming with students who had higher GPAs.
Get out.
It's crazy, right?
That's amazing.
It shows you how powerful our social environment can be.
Okay, so to sum it all up, If we want to be happier and more successful,
Hmm.
we should really invest in our social connections.
For sure.
But how do we actually do that? Like, what does that look like day to day?
It's about taking care of the relationships we already have, putting in the effort to build new ones, and
Hmm.
just generally being around people who support our growth and well-being.
Right.
And it's not just about having a ton of friends, it's about the quality of those connections.
So we should focus on building those really genuine, meaningful relationships with people who share our values.
Exactly. People who challenge us in a good way, who celebrate our wins and are there for us when we're struggling.
Yeah.
Those are the relationships that really make a difference.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
Yeah, me too.
We started by talking about how Achor flips that old idea that success leads to happiness
Yeah,
and says that actually happiness is what fuels success.
right.
And then we dug into those 7 powerful principles from the happiness advantage, the happiness advantage itself, the fulcrum and the lever, the Tetris effect falling up the Zorro circle, the 20-second rule, and social investment.
It's a lot.
It is, right?
Yeah.
But each one gives us this practical tool for becoming more positive and reaching greater success in every part of our lives.
That's the beauty of it.
It's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything's perfect.
Nope.
It's about making a conscious choice to focus on the good, to learn from our setbacks, and build a strong support system around us.
Exactly. And as you go about your day, pay attention to where your mind goes. Are you focusing on the problems or the possibilities? Remember, happiness. It's not just a feeling, it's a competitive advantage.
I love that. We hope this deep dive has given you some awesome tools to boost your happiness and find greater success in all parts of your life. Go out there and make it happen.
And it goes even deeper than that. Have you ever heard of like the mirror neuron effect?
Mirror neuron effect. I don't think I have. What is that?
It's pretty wild, actually. Our brain cells can actually mirror the emotions, actions, and even like physical feelings of other people.
So like we're literally picking up on what other people are feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So trippy.
It's like we're wired for empathy.
Right.
We experience to a certain extent what others are going through.
Oh,
And that's why emotions can be so contagious. Like, think about how you feel when you're around someone who's like super positive and energetic.
oh yeah, totally. Their energy is infectious.
Right.
But I guess that also means that like negative emotions can rub off on us too.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you're always around negativity, it's going to be hard to stay positive yourself.
Right. Makes sense.
That's why it's so important to be mindful of who we spend time with.
So we need to be intentional about surrounding ourselves with people who like lift us up and inspire us.
Exactly. Achor even mentions this study where college students with lower GPAs, their grades actually improved just by rooming with students who had higher GPAs.
Wow, really?
It's crazy.
That's incredible.
It just shows how powerful our social environment can be.
So to sum it all up,
Yeah.
if we want to be happier and more successful, we need to really invest in our social connections.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? Like, what does that look like in everyday life?
It's about nurturing the relationships we already have and making an effort to build new ones.
Yeah.
And just surrounding ourselves with people who support our growth and well-being. And remember, it's not just about having a ton of friends, it's about the quality of those connections.
So we should really focus on building those authentic, meaningful relationships with people who share our values.
Exactly. People who challenge us in a good way,
Yeah.
who celebrate our wins and are there for us when we're struggling.
Right.
Those are the relationships that make a real difference.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
It's been great talking about this.
Yeah. We started by talking about how Achor, challenges that old idea that success leads to happiness and said that actually happiness is the fuel for success.
Yeah, he really flips the script.
He does. And then we explored those 7 principles from the happiness advantage.
Yeah.
The happiness advantage itself, the fulcrum and the Tetris effect, falling up the Zorro circle, the 20-second rule, and social investment.
A lot of good stuff in there.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
Each one gives us this practical tool for becoming more positive and achieving more success in all areas of our lives.
And that's what's so great about it.
It's not about ignoring problems or pretending that everything's perfect.
Right.
It's about making a conscious decision to focus on the good, to learn from our setbacks, and to build a strong support system around us.
I think that's a great takeaway. And as you go through your day, notice where your mind goes.
Okay.
Are you focused on the problems or the possibilities? Remember, happiness, it's not just a feeling, it's like a secret weapon.
That's such a powerful way to think about it. We hope this deep dive has given you some great tools to boost your happiness and find even more success in everything you do. Thanks for listening.